Wednesday, September 21st, 2022, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So I think today will be marked as a very important day. And why is that? Well, it's the day that President Putin of Russia is actually really fired a shot across the bow of geopolitics, I would say. So what's he done now? Well, he just announced a partial mobilization to support Ukraine invasion. This is according to the FT, of course. So this is what we're going to look at today. Before I start, I'd like to announce again, for those of you who did not know, that I am an affiliate now of Miles Franklin, one of the biggest precious metals dealer in the U.S., family-run business for 30 years. And some of you have listened to me interview Andy Schechtman a couple of times in the last month or so. And yes, if you go to Miles Franklin for your precious metals, and I refer you to them, use the code Billy. That's what the viewers wanted, because we spoke about this during the live stream. Billy is the code if you contact Miles Franklin in North America for your precious metals. And of course, I'm still affiliated with Gold Investments here in the UK. The code there is Monaco64, and also Glint. Code there is Mario Glint79. And I think it's going to get harder and harder to acquire physical gold and silver, especially with what's going on in the world, geopolitically, economically. I think things are going to get even worse now, unfortunately, in terms of disruptions of energy supplies and everything else. So yesterday I was listening to the Duran. I don't know if all of you know about the Duran. I'm sure some of you do know about the Duran, and you've told me about the Duran. There are two Alexes, or one Alex and one Alexander. And they're great. They know what they're talking about. They're impartial. They cover not just what is being said geopolitically or strategically in the West, but also what people in countries like Russia, China, and other countries are saying. They don't stick to the mainstream, Western mainstream, let's say, agenda. They look at things as they are. They don't spin it, I would say. And yesterday I was listening to them, and I put a link to the video up in the cards and below in the description. It's about 27 minutes long, but I think it's worth listening to what's really happening vis-a-vis Russia, the Ukraine, and the West. And what President Putin announced today, they were forecasting this yesterday. So they seem to be a step ahead of everyone else in terms of analysis. So yesterday they spoke about referendums, or if you want to call it referenda. That's technically the right plural for referendum, but it doesn't matter. Special military operation coming to an end. Yes, in the West, people have always, in the mainstream and governments have poo-pooed this term, special military operation. They've said that Russia really invaded the whole of the Ukraine. But listen to them. And basically what they're saying is that these regions in eastern Ukraine that are mainly Russian speakers that have been really persecuted since 2014. They've now decided to have referendums, just like the Crimea had in 2014, to join the Russian Federation. And it's most probably going to go through with that decision and the referendums to become part of the Russian Federation. It means now that Russia really has to defend these regions because they're going to be part of Russia, and they actually said in the video they'll have to mobilize reserves and troops. And this is what's just happening today. And we'll go through here what the FT says. So I'm going to put a link to the FT story as well under archives.ph so you can read the whole thing. You don't have to pay for it. And then you listen to the guys at the Duran to see the difference of how things are perceived. And I'm not trying to take sides here. The reason I'm looking at this is because we're going to look at the markets next. And I think this is going to have a huge impact on the markets, on central banks, and what they do going forward. So, and this is headline news in the FT, is the first top headline online. Vladimir Putin announces partial mobilization to support Ukrainian invasion. So, if it was a real big invasion like they've been saying it is since February, why didn't Putin do this before? Well, because it was a special military operation. The Russians, I think, in my opinion, tried to negotiate with Kiev, and we know about that because there was going to be a negotiation in April, but I think the Americans and the British said no to that. So they've tried. But you're not going to hear this from the FT, right? So let's continue. Announcement comes ahead of state-managed votes in occupied regions to join Russia. Stage-managed, right? They think it's stage-managed. If it was somewhere in ex-Yugoslavia, like they had referendums, I think, like the Duran talk about, they would have said it was democratic. But when it's anything to do with Russia, it's stage managed. Vladimir Putin has announced partial mobilization ahead of heavily stage managed votes in 4 occupied regions of Ukraine to join Russia. It would be good for the FT to tell us exactly why it's stage managed. So everyone that reads the FT or listens to the BBC, and I don't watch TV, but I'm sure the mainstream TV media is using that term, stage managed. So you will hear that a lot. In a televised address to the nation on Wednesday, the Russian president said Russia's armed forces would call up its reserves immediately to support its invasion of Ukraine. Putin said Moscow would back the votes to join Russia in parts of Ukraine's Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia, I probably mispronounced that, regions that are currently under its control. The result of the referendums, and they put that in quotes because they don't think it is. They are referendums, but anyway, is effectively a foregone conclusion, with the Kremlin in charge of the vote and insisting more than 90% of the local population wants to join Russia. Ukraine's Western allies have said that they will not recognize the results of the vote, which the US has described as a sham. So there you go. This is the big problem here. This is going to escalate. I'm not a war specialist, but it doesn't sound good. Putin framed the decision as a move to protect Russian speakers in southeastern Ukraine from Kiev's recent advances. And this is what he said as well. Russia can't give up people close to her to be torn apart by executioners and fail to respond to their desire to determine their own fate. The Russian president accused the West of wanting to weaken, divide, and destroy Russia, and made a thinly veiled threat to use nuclear weapons if Ukraine continued its offensive operations. So, going a little bit towards the monetary side with what's going on with de-dollarization, not being just a Russian thing, but also a BRICS things, SCO, or Eastern Asian Economic Area thing. Yes, we've seen leaders try to do this to de-dollarize, and look what happened to them. And I can think of Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi of Libya. But now, Russia, I think, has a lot more support behind it. We heard recently that China and India admonished Putin at the recent SCO summit in Uzbekistan. But notice how this program of referendums has just been announced after that summit, which goes to show that China and India they might not be behind this, but they're not also against it. That's what the Duran says. So again, the West has been trying to tell us that the support for Russia is breaking down, but they wouldn't be doing this if the Chinese and the Indians said no. Anyway, let's continue. He accused the West of using nuclear blackmail against Russia and vowed if its territorial integrity is threatened, Russia will use all the means at its disposal. And this is what he said. I'm quoting him. He says, "This is not a bluff. This is serious then, because if these regions vote to join the Russian Federation, well, if the government in Kiev keeps attacking these regions, they'll be attacking Russia now. So that's very serious." So with that, I'm going to recommend that you watch the Duran video and you read this as well if you want. I mean, it's a short article, and the FT actually says this is a developing story. Yes, this is a huge story, I think. And now to the markets. And yeah, things are getting very interesting in terms of the bond market. And I tweeted out this yesterday that everyone's running away from the fiat currencies. And as most of you know, fiat currencies are backed by the debt that's issued by the governments that control that fiat currency. Also by the debt, of course, that is issued by banks to private individuals. But it's mostly the national debt. So it's the flip side of the ready money that we use every day, the national debt. So if that national debt, the price of bonds, that's how they create the national debt, by issuing bonds. If the price of bonds fall and yields rise, that means that the cost of financing for government is rising. And as we know, governments around the West are up to here in debt. We're almost at 31 trillion, just the national debt in the US. About 130% of GDP. We are way above 100% in the UK. Yeah, some will argue that it's just below 100, but they hide a lot of stuff to do with the bailouts of '08. So it's a lot more. Look at Japan; it's almost 300%. Italy, yeah, all the West is up to here in that, and this is a huge problem. And of course, the reason this is happening is because central banks have lost control of prices, or what they call inflation, and they're having to react very aggressively by raising rates. So what this Russian situation, this escalation does now, so what I think this will do, in my opinion, it will give cover to central banks to basically maybe pivot a little bit because they'll have the excuse of a major war. And unfortunately, I think this is where we're going. And I expect things to get also more uncertain vis-a-vis Taiwan and China because, we're going to see a lot of recrimination of Russia and the people who are supporting Russia, or not really ostracizing Russia, like China and India and other of the global South countries. So I spoke as well in the beginning of the video that this is going to disrupt even more the energy situation, all the supply chain situation. And we get a lot of stuff also, not just energy from Russia, like Europe. This is going to make it even worse. But we get a lot of stuff from the Chinese and from that part of the world, Southeast Asia. This is going to be even more disrupted, I would say. And it might give the Fed an excuse to slow down. And the excuse, of course, from the Fed and governments is that we're at war and we have to accept a rising cost of living and higher energy prices. And it's all, of course, Putin's fault because he's a dictator. He's invaded another country. He's put in all these sham referendums. And I think that's what's going on. So I expect commodities, precious metals, to do really well in this situation. And I expect maybe even the stock market to maybe stabilize. Who knows? But it's very uncertain. And let's look at what's going on then. As I said, the bond markets weren't looking very good yesterday. We're going to see what's going on this morning after this announcement by President Putin. So it's 8:15 a.m. London. So we got spot gold at $16.73. It's up $8. The high's been $16.76. Low has been $16.61. And I have to say yesterday, gold and silver did get hit. But it's interesting that gold rebounded from just around $16.60. And while the Dow was getting hit hard, I think it was down even about 500 points at one point. Gold actually rebounded off that level and stayed pretty steady, and so did silver. So I thought that was encouraging, the price action yesterday. So I'm not surprised that we're higher this morning. So silver is up just under 1% at 1944. It's up 17 cents. High's been 47, low has been 21. To the stock market, the Dow futures is down 60 points. NASDAQ is down 26 and the S&P is down 7. So not really much activity there. Of course, the Fed announcement is this afternoon, New York time, 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. London, and then there's the press conference half an hour later. The FTSE is up 22 and the Euro Stoxx 50 is down 20. To the currencies, sterling is down 0.25%, 113.50. We got down to 113.03, so it's continuing to drift lower, to melt down our currency. And it's not going to help the situation in Russia. Some people have spoken about the fact that this has been done on purpose to basically destroy the European economy by destroying the German economy, because the Americans and the Anglo-American Empire doesn't want a strong Russia and a strong Germany having good relations. Who knows? It's possible. We saw they're doing a good job of that if it's the case, because we saw PPI for Germany yesterday almost at 50%. I think it was 45.8. So it's going to get worse, and it's going to translate into double-digit CPI in Germany. So not surprising, the euro is down 0.2% at 99.07. The dollar is down slightly versus the yen, 143.50. Dollar's up 0.2 versus the Swiss franc, 96.60. Dollar's up 0.5% versus the yuan at 705.87. And I think China and a lot of other countries that are on the fence, so to speak, that still deal with the West and deal with Russia, China, and the global South. They're going to have to make a decision which side they want to take. And that's going to affect what currency block they're going towards, the dollar or the non-dollar. And I think from what we've seen in the last 9 months, a lot of them are going to the non-dollar. That could accelerate because, especially with what's going on after this announcement. Let's look at the ruble. Yeah, the ruble has weakened after this. The dollar is now at 62. It's up about 2%, but still relatively strong considering it went to 140, the dollar, back in February. To the other currencies now. Aussie dollar is down 0.25%, 66.70. The dollar is unchanged versus the Canadian dollar, 133.67. And the Kiwi dollar, basically virtually unchanged, 58.90. To the general commodities, not surprisingly, crude oil is up 3%, 86.50. Brent is up 3%, 92.43. High-grade copper is down 0.1% at 3.50. U.S. nat gas is up 2% at 7.92. And let's quickly look at the Dutch TTF gas futures. Well, that's up 3%, and it's back above 200. It's trading right around 200. We'll have to keep an eye on this, of course, with what's going on. And now to the bond market. And the 10-year yield, the U.S. 10-year yield is dropped today, 4 basis points overnight. It's at 353. We're still at 11-year highs, the 10-year yield. The 2-year yield is down 3 basis points at 294. And I have a feeling we could see the bond market now rally in terms of prices, because I think, again, it's going to give them a cover to slow down on the tightening. What's happening geopolitically, of course, is going to give them an excuse. To the UK bond market, yesterday we continue to see a huge move higher in yields, which is a bad thing. This morning, though, the 10-year yield is down 2.5 basis points at 327. And if you remember well, about a month ago, I was telling you that if we broke through 2.7, which was an important technical long-term level, that we could see that yield go very quickly, and we have. The 2-year is unchanged at 328. So there you go. If you enjoyed this report or video, make sure you hit the like button and share it far and wide. And also think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. And with that, I wish you all a great rest of the day. Take care. Bye.